Tonight, a look at a historic move that could change the face of college athletics, granting scholarship athletes the right to unionize. Tonight, two sport management experts join our panel to discuss the landmark decision coming out of Northwestern. We're going to look at the pros and the cons of if this decision, in fact, became law. And the pressure is on as lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are calling on VA Chief Eric Shinseki to step down. That amid news reports of mismanagement and altered documents at VA hospitals across the nation. Is it time that this man throw in the towel? Plus, Edward Snowden, he speaks out, saying he's not a traitor. Snowden claims, in fact, he's a patriot who wants to come back home, while he says he still believes leaking those classified documents was the right thing to do. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We'll get into that, what I promised will be a spirited debate coming up tonight. And we'll also get, of course, to the VA hospital shakeup in a moment here. A lot of angry people, and for good reason, as to still the continued mistreatment of our veterans here after all the promises to the contrary. Well, tonight we begin with reaction to a move that could make the playing field uneven in college athletics. National Labor Relations Board ruled back in March of this year that Northwestern University scholarship football players are in fact school employees who should in fact be given the right to form a union. Well, 2 weeks later, the players held a secret vote, and the results of that vote have not yet been released. A former player, Kane Coulter, said back in March that giving players the right to form a union is in fact the right way to go.
The biggest thing that this decision means is that we finally have a voice. We finally have somebody in place to negotiate on our behalf and to make sure that our experience is the best that it can be, and somebody actually looking out for the players and only for the players.
It should be noted that Northwestern football's own coach and athletic director both didn't support the NLRB's decision. The move, however, gaining support from others around the country. And if you want to look closer to home and just look at the recent NCAA basketball championships, both of which were in UConn, on the men's side, star basketball player Shabazz Napier, he said he supports the move. Well, tonight we are joined by two gentlemen who have had this debate many times here. C. Donald Cook, Executive Director of Inter-College Athletics Emeritus at Sacred Heart University, and Dr. Alan Sack, Professor of Management of Sports Industries Department at the University of New Haven. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And is it fair to say that while this debate isn't new, recent decisions, recent actions by universities, realignment, it's made more shades of gray in this thing than maybe the black and white debate of decades ago or a generation ago as to whether or not a star athlete should get a bigger piece of the pie? It's more complicated now, isn't it?
Very definitely is, Rich. When we were talking outside about how complicated, how complex the enterprise has become, and you hit on a couple of key points. The realignment was some of the inertia that began turning the whole enterprise upside down. Now, from the perspective of what you would like to see happen, there's absolutely no argument that the athletes deserve more acknowledgement and maybe some additional funding because they earned it. So we could take that position. I think what happens is that when you get to that point where you have to enact that legislation or that understanding, then it gets very complicated because there are Title IX issues that have to be abided by, the federal law of 1972 that dealt with sex discrimination. And then so paying athletes at the highest level, which has some merit, but when you have to filter down the participation of all the other athletes that deserve some acknowledgement too, that's when it really gets sticky.
And we have so many audiences at home that listen to this. I mean, you got guys like me who are on Saturdays or camped in front of the tube watching, and I'm not watching D3 football. I'm watching, SEC stuff. I'm watching big-time football with big-time money, billion-dollar contracts. Now even networks being created. Talks about consolidation, realignment, all those things. But it's a mixed pie. If we go down this road and we open Pandora's box and we start paying them, not under the table, but above the table, at the same school, I mean, I play baseball. Baseball programs are shrinking in this country. They don't bring in revenue. So can we have different sets of rules? Can we have it both ways, Doctor, where we say, okay, we're going to pay the football and the basketball teams, but baseball, crew, and some of the smallest sports, even at D1 schools, you don't get a piece of the pie.
You just made a great point in passing. You just said under the table, over the table instead of under the table. Right there, you're saying something very, very important, that since 1973, there has been in place this pay-for-play system, in fact, a contractual quid pro quo. When I was at Notre Dame playing football, I had a 4-year scholarship, and that was guaranteed for 4 years, and they couldn't take it away for poor performance because I wasn't a Heisman Trophy winner, which I was not, and nor because I was injured. And I thought that was a tremendous system, and it was very much consistent with, it was paying, it was in fact a compensation system, but it was perfectly in line with the, I think, the academic values of higher education. 1973 is when the NCAA put into effect the 1-year renewable scholarship, which meant that if during that 1 year you did not rise to the level of performance that the coach really wanted, or if you were injured, or for just about any other reason, the coach would be able to take away that scholarship or fire you. And what I'm saying is, in 1973, we started dealing with an employment system that was in place. It simply did not pay the players what they deserve. So I would have to say that I support the union movement 100%. And I believe they have every right to unionize. Whether they'll win that or not is up in the air, but I think they have a very much of a legal right because, in fact, they have all the characteristics of what it takes to be an employee under law.
How do we still fight that they're not employees? They are, aren't they?
Well, you know, let's go back to the first comment that Alan made, because he and I never agree on anything.
No,
so
this is fine.
Oh, they were quite even in the green room. Yeah.
As far as the 1-year renewal versus the 4-year scholarship, I coached college baseball for 20 years. And I had, back then, you know, we played during the Spanish-American War, but shortly after that, I was coaching in my mid-20s at Fairfield University. And I had some kids on athletic scholarships. And at that time, before 73, as Alan said, they were 4-year commitments. But what was happening to me in isolated instances, but it did in fact occur, when kids get to be about juniors or seniors and they start thinking about life after college, some of them lose that zest, that enthusiasm, that energy and commitment to the sport. And I used to kid a little bit about it. They're the ones that hide out in the athletic training room because they don't want to go out and take batting practice in 35-degree weather. And now I have an issue with that part of it. Now, at least a 1-year renewal gives me an opportunity to police the behaviors that do go on. I agree with Alan at that. I think a 4-year scholarship, maybe even a 5-year scholarship, because it usually takes 5 years to earn a degree. In principle, I'm fine with it. But the 1-year renewal is not unlike the academic scholarships that institutions award. If you do not earn 3.2, 3.4 at the end of an academic year, they take that scholarship from you. So how would we in athletics do something that's in conflict with institutional policy?
But you know, as much as anything, a kid gets hurt. We've seen it before.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, through no fault of his own or her own, and they've honored their commitment and they've laid it out on the field. Right. All of a sudden, an ACL might mean that they're looking at another school and maybe, not probably, not a scholarship on the opposite side.
And I'd like to respond to Don, though, that I make a distinction myself between curricular activities and extracurricular activities. A curricular activity is in the classroom. And I would say that in the classroom, if you're not really living up to that particular standard, they do take away the scholarship because you're trying to incentivize someone to become a great scholar. Now, should we do the same thing when you're talking about when you're talking about athletics? That's an extracurricular activity, and I don't think we should be incentivizing the athletes to put all of their time into their athletics for the fear that they're not going to have the scholarship renewed the next year.
But
because
de facto,
because
isn't
what
that
it does
part
is
of the compact, though, Doctor?
It
Where
is,
you know
but
if you're going there, you're not going to Notre Dame.
Yeah,
They're not going there because they thought that you were a great-looking guy. They went there because they thought you were going to win them games on Saturdays.
That's true. But the main goal here is to not, in 1973, when you went to the 1-year renewable scholarships, you were no longer an athlete second and a student first. You are now what really happened here in the 1973 is you became an athlete first and a student second. And that's where that transition took place, and that's very important to keep in mind. When I was at Notre Dame...
I want you guys to stick with me. We're going to jump to break. We're going to continue this conversation on the other side of it and talk about what this might look like. Because Even if most of us believe there needs to be more equity in the system, are we really prepared to see what the final picture is going to look like? Colleges altogether shutting down programs, super leagues here where we only have 20, 30, 40, and a whole bunch of sports that disappear outright. We'll do the math and the practicality after this.